What is going on, guys? JD from New York here. It is March 25th, 2020, and this is your AEW Dynamite review right here on Off the Script. Little bit of a different situation tonight. I am not alone, and I have a very special guest with me today to go over the confrontation between Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho, which was, in my opinion, absolutely fantastic. I have Ticket Drew on the line, and he is with me today on Off the Script. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. We had a very entertaining Dynamite, a little bit different than last week, being that the CDC has given us more rules and regulations, but it was a great show nonetheless, and I'm happy to have you here. We're going to go over the show tonight. And what were your quick thoughts on that Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho segment to close the show?
Well, thanks for having me. It's a long time coming. I think we've been trying to do something, and it just schedules don't work out. I thought the Matt Hardy, Chris Jericho thing was fantastic. A little weird with Matt Hardy's catchphrases with no crowd, but they played on that well, and Jericho is just fantastic. He really is.
I was surprised by his entrance to the ring. I don't know how they did that, but that was ingenious. That was creative, and just looking at that, I feel like, I don't want to say it's going to be Vince McMahon's loss, because nothing is ever Vince McMahon's loss. Vince McMahon is going to operate his machine the way he wants to. But, I mean, after these last two appearances and the excitement that Matt Hardy is already generating, I feel like he's going to bring something to AEW that Vince McMahon really missed out on with the whole broken gimmick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's going to miss out on a couple of other stars that he let go. And I'm sure you'll talk about that later. But yeah, I think Vince missed the boat on this. I think he tried to do something with Matt, just didn't get it. And Matt's going to capitalize. And Jericho's going to bring the best out of him. Yeah,
I totally agree. Well, anyway, we're going to go over the show tonight, guys. Make sure you are following me on social media at JDfromNY206. Drew, why don't you give everybody your Twitter handle and where they can find you on social media?
Sure, I'm at Ticket Drew, and that's pretty much all I'm going to give out to you goons. So there you go, at Ticket Drew.
Well, there you go. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on that bell for all notifications. And the podcast, as always, is brought to you by Audible tonight. audibletrial.com/offthescript. 30 days free, and that one free audio book of your choosing. Show started off tonight with the emptiness of Daly's Place. And Drew, last weekend we had, or not last weekend, but last week on Dynamite, we had the AEW roster split between baby faces and heels. We had that 50-person limit due to the outbreak that's going on, that's sweeping across the United States, and now bigger regulations have hit Florida. I'm sure we'll talk about what happened to Orlando this coming Thursday, but I'm assuming that Tony Khan is playing by the rules. Only 10 people, I believe, is the limit now, and AEW Dynamite looked vastly different than it did last week.
It sure did, and they had to. They couldn't go out there and do what they did last week because you're right, because of the rules and regulations. And I really think that separated them from NXT and Raw and SmackDown, and also the camera angle. I mean, if you look, WWE switched everything because of, in my opinion, what they saw on Dynamite. Tonight was different, but it was still very, very good. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do 1 million plus tonight. I really wouldn't.
I mean, that's a stretch. I do believe they will do 1 million with Matt Hardy coming in. That was my prediction from what I seen last week. But I don't know if you tuned into NXT tonight. I was very curious because I wanted to see if Triple H would do anything different. And it wasn't any different than what I seen on Monday Night Raw. They got the camera angle. They got the hard cameras facing the stage, which is a major improvement. But NXT didn't look any different than SmackDown and Raw. There was no Morrow. There was no Nigel. There was no Beth. It was a Monday Night Raw that was colored with NXT. That's pretty much what I seen.
Yeah, it's a skeleton crew, and I had both on. I thought the ending was, very good. I think that's a tease to Killer Cross, but you could be wrong. But I think that they had to try and combat Matt Hardy, Brodi Lee, and Jericho, and I just don't think they'll win that war. Not tonight.
What do you think WWE is going to do for WrestleMania? I know they got some surprises in the can. I'm sure they have to at this point. What do you think the vibe is going to be? Are we seeing things play out on TV like Raw, SmackDown, and NXT? Is this the way WrestleMania is going to be on April 4 and April 5?
I don't think so. And you're smart enough to know that this WrestleMania is going to be so overproduced that it's probably going to be one of the best WrestleManias they ever produced, top to bottom. And it's 2 days. So they have, a couple days to film this, then they're going to get it in the can, and then they're going to overproduce it and make it the best quality they can, because as much as I know you can't stand some of the stuff they put out, their production value is second to none. And I think that WrestleMania will be something that a lot of people talk about, and you don't got to sit there for 9 hours. We got 2 days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish they didn't add matches on top of matches on top of matches like they've been doing the last couple of days, but that's another story. I do think, and I actually talked about this earlier today, I do think that WWE is going to go out of their way to push their, I guess, the fact that the situation is so different. I mean, they have the ball in their court with this. They could make WrestleMania look however they want. I think they have to. Cinematic, I was hoping for maybe more of a cinematic feel because it's going to be in the can for 2 weeks. I shit on Kevin Dunn all the time for, his appearance, and I do the whole Beaver thing, but, I mean, there is nobody better than Kevin Dunn, and if he has free reign to do whatever he wants with that, with some of the people that I know that are working there, that know some of the people I know in House of Glory that WWE picked up as far as the cinematics and working that camera, I think it could be really special if WWE wants it to be. I just don't have any faith in them, and you know me, it's, from what I've seen, I'm not going to give them any benefit of the doubt in this situation.
Yeah, I think I understand where you're coming from. In some respects, things are very overproduced and sometimes very underproduced. But I do believe that this WrestleMania will be special. I think the Cena-Bray match, I even think the Goldberg-Roman match, the Taker-AJ, I think it's going to be a spectacle unlike we've seen because they have the time to make this like a movie. And if you watch that, there's a show on WWE Network, I believe it's called like either WrestleMania, the movie, or something to that extent. That whole cinematic feel for all these big-time WrestleMania matches that we saw, I think you're going to get it. And I think a lot of people are going to be happy. And don't forget, JD, they want a huge buy and a huge rating because they're going to sell those rights sooner rather than later.
I know. I feel it with what we've seen on ESPN. I know the number came in. I seen some people joking that AEW Dynamite last week beat ESPN's number of WrestleMania 30, but you're going to get those trolls on social media. But, I mean, I don't consider it a good number. That's what I said today. I don't consider it a good number because, A, there's no competition. There's nothing on TV right now. And it's a really glaring statistic about where WWE's fan base is. Like, not only that, but you can see how many, I don't want to call them brainwashed, but that's exactly what they are. WWE has a lot of people that will watch anything that they do, and those are the people that watch Raw and SmackDown every week. And that 839,000, number didn't really come off as impressive to me. I don't know what you thought about that.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of casual viewers, too. I mean, like, my household, when I'm sitting there doing dishes or I'm cooking, I just put on ESPN, There's got to be something on. So that's what I think you're getting there is a lot of casual viewers who haven't watched wrestling in a long time. I got a lot of text messages from a lot of buddies who were like, WrestleMania's on ESPN. Are you watching? And I'm like, nah, I saw this 6 years ago. I was there. But I mean, I wanted to see how they produced it or reproduced it, and it was good. But I mean, it wasn't like destination television for me. But you're right, there is nothing on. I think that number is impressive though, because it's not overly impressive, don't get me wrong, but it is impressive for a stale show. I mean, if AEW ran a rerun of Dynamite from a month ago, I don't even think they do 500,000. And that's not to knock AEW. It's just we've seen this already. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I had. I talked about this again today when I uploaded earlier. I'm wondering why ESPN didn't want to go and purchase some of the WWE 24 documentaries and put them on ESPN. I think that would be good television to have a good inside look at, the roster. Maybe get some of those casuals that don't know to care about a Ronda or a Becky or a Sasha. They got some great WrestleMania documentaries on there from the last 3 WrestleManias, I believe. Those were fantastic shows, and I'm surprised that they didn't go and purchase them and put them on ESPN.
They should, and WWE honestly should put those on for an hour or 40 minutes during Raw and SmackDown. Yeah. I don't need to see, the WrestleMania 34 with AJ or Shinsuke or anybody. I don't need to see any of that. We've all seen. I don't need to see the Rumble for an hour and 30 minutes. I would love to see one of those documentaries. And you're right, that one Raw that we got, I don't know if you remember it, when it was snowed out. From I believe they had it at WWE Studios. That was one of the best Raws I can remember during that time period because it was all like video packages and they were sitting in a studio and Heyman and Lesnar and it was just great. That's what they should be doing. They should not be focusing on showing us stuff that we've already seen. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. The show, let's get back. I know we're talking about WWE. It's easy for us to talk about WWE because I know we're both WWE guys, but we did have AEW Dynamite tonight. Cody and Jimmy Havok. This was the open to Dynamite tonight, and it was slow. It wasn't all that impressive. It was merely just there. It existed to just give Cody a big win on TV in this
I guess, elite and inner circle storyline. Cody needs to stamp his name in the win column before they finally, hopefully, get blood and guts on TV. But he wins here with two crossroads on Jimmy Havok. What'd you think of the open with Cody?
Yeah, I thought it was slow. I really do like Cody Rhodes. I like everything that he's done recently. I like him on commentary, but I thought this was slow. And for some reason, sometimes guys don't mesh. I don't know if him and Jimmy Havok mesh. Jimmy Havok's a hell of a performer, but it wasn't my cup of tea.
I just don't buy into Jimmy Havok. I don't know what, others might see something in him. I haven't seen anything in him that's going to make me gravitate towards him. I guess I haven't seen enough of him on TV. He's one of those guys that they'll call and they'll be like, we need you for the show tonight. Come on in. He's not a regular on AEW Dynamite, but that could be working against him. I just don't know why in this situation they could have taken this off the show and maybe put another one of those great vignettes that they did last week. We've seen one with Jake tonight. They got one with Lance Archer last week. Darby Allin's been killing it with his own vignettes. This is something that I really didn't care about on the show, and it just furthered a storyline that we kind of know is already there, and it's on the back burner. And I think we're all ready for blood and guts. So this kind of didn't mean anything in the end of whatever happened tonight.
No, I agree with you. And I think we're so ready for blood and guts that everything that's coming before it is kind of like being overlooked. And I think that's unfortunate. But I don't think blood and guts is happening anytime soon because they really need to save that for an audience, and a big one at that. Especially, it was scheduled to take place on the East Coast, which I know you love. I'm an East Coast man at heart. That's where I was born and raised. But I would love to see it anywhere with a crowd. But I think they should go to a hotbed, whether it's Atlanta, New York, wherever they can draw some serious fans. New Jersey, that's where they should go.
Well, hopefully that happens soon. I heard today, I don't know how true it is. I mean, a lot of people think he's talking out of his ass, but President Trump said by Easter Sunday, that following Monday, he wants everybody back to work, hopefully. I hope that's the case. I don't know how likely that's going to be. Then we can kind of gauge what's going to happen with our pro wrestling passion, and maybe we could get things back to being normal. I hope so. Yeah,
I mean, we're on a 2-week lockdown here in Minnesota, so we're not going anywhere besides groceries, and if somebody needs something, gas or whatever, but we're not going anywhere. So Easter, I think, is a stretch, but he's the president, so he probably knows more than I do.
Yeah, well, hopefully. we got Brandi celebrating in the ring with Cody, and then they cut to a video package on the screen of Jake Roberts sitting in front of a fire pit. He said when AEW started, his phone didn't ring, even though he's the best-minded in all of pro wrestling, and he actually said he's the best mind in pro wrestling, period. Which, I mean, I'm not going to refute that from Jake. Jake is one of my all-time favorites. He said Lance Archer was tearing it up in Japan, and he did not get the call either. He said they were intimidated by Archer, and they tried to keep him away. He said now it's up to Cody to present Archer with someone to wrestle so he can prove himself, and they want one match with Cody as well. He called Arn Anderson an old man, and he referred to Brandi as the Monica Lewinsky to his Bill Clinton. He said it's up to Cody, and closed with his patented "Trust Me." And they did a close-up of Jake's eyes, and then it was just this creepy vibe, and I'm loving what they're doing with Jake. I don't want to shit on WWE, but it's my nature to do so. They're using these legends, AEW is, in a way that is highlighting them in the present day to their strengths. Jake was always one of the best promos in the history of pro wrestling, in my opinion. This was creepy. It fit the vibe. I'm loving the combination of him and Lance Archer, more so than a lot of people wanted Jake with Brody. And we'll talk about Brodi Lee in a little bit. But I feel this is going to get Lance Archer over big time. But, my God, this is getting Jake over more than it is Lance Archer, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that WWE, and I know it's your nature, but I think when WWE wanted Jake or could have used Jake, Jake wasn't there mentally nor physically. So now I think Jake's clean. They probably could have used him. They passed on him after all this time, and AEW is reaping the benefits. And I think that that's a testament to Tony Khan and maybe Cody or the Bucks or whomever, maybe Jericho. But I think they have done very, very, very well with the Arn Andersons, the Dustin Rhodes, who's not a manager, but I mean, he's, someone who's put out to pasture and has really revitalized his career. And Jake Roberts. I mean, Jake Roberts has added so much to this show and so much to Lance Archer that I think it's going to be something special when Jake and Archer hit that ring for a match. I mean, not Jake, but in his corner. And I'm excited for it. Jericho is fantastic crapping on Arn, and now I think that Jake is just another one to do it, and it looks and feels very big, and that's what they want.
What did you think about the Lance Archer debut? I know a lot of people were, I guess, kind of iffy about the way he debuted. It was just Lance Archer coming out with Jake to watch one of Cody's matches. I don't remember who it was against, but it was one of those situations where a lot of people expected him to come out and make this big splash and do the formulaic sneak attack on Cody. I'm actually glad they didn't go that route because it's not needed. It's overdone. And Jake walking out there presenting my guy in a way like, yeah, this is my guy. He's gonna fucking kick Cody's ass. I don't need to get in the ring and sneak attack this guy. I know what's coming. You know, out of everybody here, we don't need to go to that tactic. What did you think about Lance Archer debuting the way that he did in just a nice, subtle way?
Yeah, I thought it was well done. I think that's probably Jake saying less is more, and just trust me, I know what I'm doing. Like Jake, if you remember, which I know you do, but maybe some of your fans don't because they're younger, and then you have a lot of them on here. They don't remember Jake Roberts. Jake Roberts wasn't chiseled out of granite. He didn't do 6,000 moves. He wasn't off the top rope. Jake was psychology 101 and could talk you into a building, and he made you believe that he was out of his mind. And I think that he's telling Lance that, just trust me with this one, and he's probably got I think he would have full control over what's going on with those two because Jake is probably a little bit more than just a manager at this point in AEW.
Oh, I think so. I even said it on my Dynamite review last week. If anybody is going to have a promo on Dynamite, or if AEW is going to need to school some of those who don't know the art of the promo better than others, sit down with Jake and sit down and have class with him and let Jake teach you on the art of a promo. That's what I said last week. I don't know. I mean, he's one of the greatest ever. In fact, I after Jake's debut on Dynamite, I went back and watched his entire feud with Macho Man Randy Savage, and I literally sat there mesmerized. I didn't say a word to anybody. And I watched Jake's body language and his mannerisms and his eye contact and the way he uses his voice just to sound just fucking downright psychotic. It's just, it's the perfect presentation of when I have kids in the future. This is pro wrestling to me. Jake, you want a promo? Jake is going to be one of the top 3 easy that I'm going to show my kids about. This is pro wrestling.
Yeah. Jake Roberts was one of the best and still is one of the best on the microphone as you're seeing right now. And it's like AEW's Dusty Rhodes with the NXT guys. When Dusty would come in for promo class, they all speak so highly about him, even in FCW. That's a must watch on the WWE Network. If you guys don't have it, get it. It's free, and go watch that FCW documentary because it's fantastic. And I really do think that Jake Roberts is going to help a lot of these guys because JD, as much as you love AEW, there's a lot of guys who need work, and a lot of guys need work in NXT and WWE. So don't think I'm just pro WWE. There's a lot of guys who need work.
I know. But AEW is doing a great thing with Jake, and I hope that he stays clean. Most importantly, I hope he stays clean, and they begin to build that trust in him, and he begins to just build that trust with AEW, and it's just a situation where I hope he finds a place there that he can help them out in the long run. That's my main thing there with Jake the Snake Roberts. Cody was on commentary tonight, and he actually mentioned about the pre-recorded segments here from Jake and Lance Archer, that it's always in a pre-recorded segment that people get all these daggers out and come and start attacking him. He said, what Jake said comes across as bitter and jaded, and he especially didn't like him bringing up Brodi Rhodes. Cody said Archer doesn't have a body of work here in the United States. It's kind of true. I think he worked for WWE. A lot of people tell me he worked for WWE. Familiar with that?
No.
I believe he worked as Vance Archer in the WWE ECW brand. This is what I'm hearing.
I didn't watch a lot of that, so maybe.
Neither did I. You don't want to either. But when
CM Punk was there, I watched it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was okay, but all I needed was that one pay-per-view, I think it was. What the fuck was it? December to Dismember or some shit like that. Mm-hmm. One of the worst pay-per-views of all time in WWE. But not even talking about that. He worked in WWE. He does have some body of work in the United States. I watched what he did with Will Ospreay back in the G1 Climax on that night one in Dallas. Fantastic work. A lot of people were like, oh, he's not a big get for AEW. He absolutely is in my eyes. He's not going to be a game changer or a ratings draw, but I mean, it's just another solid guy on that roster.
He's older, right? He's older?
He's I would say he's about, what is he, 42, 43 years old? Doesn't look it.
No.
He said Archer has to start somewhere, and it doesn't start with him. He has to work his way up. He said Archer can debut next week on Dynamite. And that is, I guess, confirmed by Cody that we're getting Lance Archer on Dynamite next week. And I guess that works. You know, they want to build up some anticipation for the Cody match. Obviously, it's not going to happen anytime soon in the situation that we want it to happen in. So I guess this is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I would say so. I think they need to build that Cody match, and I think it could happen at Double or Nothing if we're in a place in this world that, you know, we could have that event take place in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. I know I will be there if they do decide to run it. And I think that that's probably where it'll culminate. And I think that's the right way to go. You don't need to keep burning big matches on Dynamite or NXT or Raw or SmackDown. Like, we're going to get to a point where we need to save these for the pay-per-views or the live, you know, the big events that are coming up. And AEW only runs 4 pay-per-views a year. So they got to have big matches.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there was a news article today about NXT's Plan B, I guess. Now that Orlando shut down, starting Thursday at 11 p.m. Hopefully WrestleMania is in the can by then. But NXT was under the impression that, or they were operating that, or under the impression that this was not going to happen. And they had planned out that all of the TakeOver Tampa matches were going to happen on weekly TV. I don't know how many matches per week. Maybe it might have been 1 match per week, 2 matches per week. They had about, I guess, 5 or 6 planned out. And obviously that's not going to happen. What did you think? If the lockdown and the stay-at-home order was not in effect, what did you think about NXT doing those TakeOver matches spread out across the month of April, getting us those TakeOver matches? I think it's a good idea because, A, it kind of prolongs what they want to do next. It kind of gives them some time, and it does separate the TakeOver build for Tampa, and it separates that from the Boston build. Hopefully we get a TakeOver Boston, and they don't have to immediately, you know, come up with some bullshit plan. They can spread these out across April, give themselves some time to go into Boston, and it's a way to counter AEW because I don't know what they would do if they didn't have these matches just canceled. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's smart. I think you need to spread out your content because we do need to get to May, June, July, and then I guess August if we're there. And I wouldn't want to have all these matches on one night. I don't want NXT to be Friday night during WrestleMania just to blow off these matches. They only had 1 announced match, so there's nothing for them to blow off. Build and have it, you know, maybe 1 week, then the next, and the next, and the next. I wouldn't have them all on one night. I think they need to get to Boston, because that week, if we get there, and I think we will, I'm not going to make a prediction like the president, but I think we will get there. I think that weekend's going to be huge. The Hall of Fame is going to be that weekend. I think SummerSlam might be at a bigger venue, and you know, I think NXT Boston would fit perfectly there, and I know that they have a plan for it. But I do believe that they should continuously build a weekly thing and then have a match, you know, maybe once a month that's supposed to be on that NXT Takeover card, or 2 times a month. I don't want it all in one shot.
Now, I didn't watch the show tonight. I was flipping back and forth in between commercials just to see the vibe of NXT coming off the Raw and SmackDown shows that we've seen. I don't know the announcement that Regal and Triple H made about Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. I said today that if there's one match in the plan that could be held back and not portrayed in the empty venue that we're seeing now, it would be that one, because I feel like they've kind of run the gauntlet of stipulation matches. They've had nothing but stipulation matches. I've loved everything that they've done, and I feel like if they want to go a different route, a steel cage match is not going to really contain the intensity of that feud. Plus, we've seen 2 steel cage matches a couple of weeks ago on WWE TV. Everybody's been lobbying for a Hell in a Cell match between Gargano and Ciampa. I think if they want to hold off on it, those 2 guys could tell the story and take it all the way to August, get that Hell in a Cell match in the TD Garden. What do you think about holding that match back while doing everything else and saving that for SummerSlam weekend?
Yeah, Hell in a Cell at the Performance Center just doesn't fit. I'm not talking about
not gonna happen.
Yeah, I can't see that. I think that's you like, this is where the fans need to understand that the business side of this is you guys, the fans. So you want to have a ladder match with no fans? You want to have a tables match with no fans? I mean, they're calling a Buried Alive match, which they could do, a Boneyard match. So no, I don't want to see this.
Is that what it is?
I think so. It'll be some sort of form of that. Like I said, WrestleMania, in my opinion, is going to be so produced that it's going to be one of the best shows they ever put out there. Wyatt and Cena are going to get the full cinematic treatment. But back to Gargano and Ciampa, I don't want to see that feud end in the Performance Center. I agree with you. I want to see that in Boston or at an NXT takeover with a full crowd. And if they want to do it in Hell in a Cell, great. But maybe they get on the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in October. Maybe they just blend it. Maybe they just put an NXT match on Hell in a Cell in October. Who knows?
I don't even think, from what I've seen on the calendar, I don't even see Hell in a Cell listed as a pay-per-view this year. Hopefully they got rid of it.
That'd be great.
TLC are not on the calendar.
That'd be great, because I think I was at TLC this year. And as much as I'm thankful for everything WWE gives me and allows me to do, the pay-per-views, the gimmick pay-per-views, I think have run their course.
No,
I really
absolutely.
do.
I mean, I've talked about that in just
probably
I've ranted on that so many times. I can't stand it. It's something that I wish that they would fix, but I don't expect them to. It is what it is. I mean, everybody feels the same way, so there's no reason in ranting on it. But we got Darby Allin and Kip Sabian. How big of a fan of Darby Allin are you?
I like him. I think his gimmick is good. I think that he works well. I think that he's going to, he has translated very well, but I think it's going to take a little bit more time for everybody to just accept him for the gimmick that he's trying to portray and the wrestler that he is. There's a lot of AEW fans who, like yourself, who are very well versed in wrestling and know exactly who he is, but there's a lot of people who don't know who Darby Allin is. I admittedly was one of them when he first came. I think I texted you and said, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
So, I mean, not everybody knows who he is, but he's making a name for himself, that's for sure.
Is he the next coming of Jeff Hardy? Could he be the next coming? That's a better question. Could he be the next coming of Jeff Hardy?
Yeah, I think he could be. I really do like the Guevara comparison that people have been making. I see a lot of what they're saying about him with Eddie Guerrero and everything else like that. That one I'll jump on. The Jeff Hardy comparison right now with Sabian.
No, with Darby.
Oh, with Darby Allin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. It's tough. Jeff was, he made a name for himself being as a tag team guy, but he really took off as a singles, and you don't get the WWE title for nothing. And that's, he got that, I think, 3 times. So I don't know. That's a tough comparison right now.
Well, Darby is feuding with the Inner Circle. He's racking up wins left and right. And he got a win over Kip Sabian tonight with Penelope Ford in his corner. We went to a commercial break midway through this thing. Sabian wrapped Darby around the ring post, and then Sabian springboarded at Darby. Darby ducked it. He then charged into a dive, and then Ford got in the way. He dove onto Sabian seconds later. Cody was mentioning a lot of old school on commentary. I think at one point he mentioned Kevin Nash. He mentioned Bill Watts. He's all over the place tonight on commentary. So they were very. I mean, they hit Booker T's name like 3 or 4 times. It was almost like, okay, is Booker T coming here now? I mean, well, I think Sammy did. I think Sammy did like a spin and Rooney during his match. That's why he probably brought up Booker T. But he mentioned Bill Watts during this exchange with Darby Allin, and then he landed onto the cement floor. Sabian scored a near fall a couple of minutes later with just a flurry of offense. I didn't even write it down because I really did not care about this match either, just like the Cody and the Jimmy Havok match. We had Darby get the surprise win with a Last Supper leg lock for the win, and Cody said it looks like a Gibson leg lock to me. I don't know if he meant Robert Gibson. I don't know what he was talking about. I'm assuming he did. So he wins in 12 minutes. It was good for what it was. I think Kip Sabian is very underrated. I just don't care about the gimmick. Darby Allin is over. And every time I mention Darby Allin, I'm like, this is the guy. If AEW is going to have a secondary title, this is the guy that's going to be chasing that secondary title. Hopefully it is a mid-card title. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they do need to introduce that because I think they've grown both stars-wise and roster-wise. I mean, there's one thing to have stars and there's one thing to have a roster. And I think that they've gotten to a point where they have legitimate stars who they could elevate with a secondary title. And I know other companies don't view the titles as something that's a necessity to make a superstar or continue a superstar's legacy. But I think with AEW, a secondary title hopefully is coming sooner rather than later. And I think exactly right. This guy could use it and it could elevate him to new heights. I would be all for it.
Moving on here, we got Jake Hager versus Chico Adams. This was a no-brainer. Jake Hager wins here with a triangle. Chico Adams passed out via referee stoppage. Nice little statistic there on the I guess nameplate of Jake Hager when he came out. Every match he's won, it's been by referee stoppage. So I guess they're kind of playing into his MMA background with all of that. At the end of it, Hager celebrated. Out came Jon Moxley with the AEW World Championship. He and Hager stared down. They started throwing some punches. Moxley landed the paradigm shift. Hager was down, and then he just popped right up, which I fucking hate. I hate when people deliver a finishing move and then they no-sell it the next sequence. So he popped right up from the paradigm shift and grabbed Moxley's ankle, tried to put him in an ankle lock. Moxley powered out and sent Hager to the outside, and he ran away. Cody was on commentary saying that they're clearly on a collision course, and it looks like we're getting Jon Moxley versus Jake Hager. Whether that's for the title or not, I don't know. But what do you think about Moxley and Hager being the next program to bide him some time, keep him busy, while the Elite and the Inner Circle do their thing with blood and guts?
Yeah, I think it's just, another stepping stone. I'm not really too sold on the whole Jake Hager versus Jon Moxley. I think Jon Moxley could have had a bigger program. That's not a knock to Jake Hager. Jake Hager is a legit tough guy, and I think they're kind of trying to build him as maybe their version of Brock Lesnar or like a legitimate shoot fighter, and I understand it. This match for me will probably end up being forgettable, and that's not a knock on both those guys. It's just I know that Hager's not going to steal the title, and Moxley's on a collision course with probably somebody else.
I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, this is why, in my honest opinion, they have a lot of three-man groups, AEW does. And Jake Hager has been decent. I never was a big Jack Swagger guy. When he was paired with Cesaro, that's when I thought he was at his peak. And then Vince McMahon fucked that up.
They are group heavy. Do you hate the groups in AEW?
I don't, but it makes me worry that they're going to have a trios title. And I'm not a big fan. I watched a couple seasons of Lucha Underground. I'm not a big fan of the trios title. It kind of makes sense for what they're doing. We get so many tag team matches as it is. I don't need to see six-man tag team matches on top of that. This is where a Pac would come in. This is where a Pentagon would come in. That would make a great challenge for Jon Moxley in an interim role. And we're getting Jake Hager, which makes it kind of unexciting, and it makes it predictable. And I don't really care to see that because we all know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, it's a big name, but I'm with you. I've always been high on Pentagon. I thought the WWE would have him locked up, and they didn't. Or maybe, they never
Did you want that to happen, though?
Yeah.
I mean, NXT maybe. Triple H I trust, but I don't know. The overall gimmick of Pentagon, I don't know.
I think he's fantastic, and I know they're big on the Lucha Bros, and they stole the show when I was at All Out, and I would love to see him in a singles match. I would be all for him fighting Jon Moxley right now, and that's not a knock on Hager. It's just he doesn't have steam right now. That's just my thought.
Hager doesn't have steam.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. He's the big hurt. He's the muscle of AEW, which. He's beat Dustin. He's beat this guy tonight. He hasn't really accumulated any wins to just be thrusted into a feud with Jon Moxley over the AEW Championship, but
I agree.
It is what it is. We got Jon Moxley actually was interviewed here. Well, he wasn't interviewed. He kind of took over the entire promo. He was facing the camera, and he called Jake Hager a son of a bitch, and he told him to check his blind spot because he goes where he wants when he wants. Said he's out for blood and ready for action. He said Hager walked away from a fight tonight, but when the AEW title is on the line, he won't walk out. He'll send him out on a stretcher, or I'm going to die trying. Now, I want to bring up something that you personally told me after Moxley won the AEW Championship at Revolution from Chris Jericho. Do you feel the same way when you texted me a month ago about Moxley winning the championship? Is it the right time for Moxley to be the world champion, or would you rather someone else be the champion? Would you rather Chris Jericho still be the champion? Because in my honest opinion, I do think Moxley is the guy, and right now, especially with the circumstances that we're in, it's not really fair to judge him as a world champion and how he's doing as a world champion. So with everything that's going on and the situation that the world is in right now, do you feel that Moxley is or is not the guy for the job right now?
Well, when he won the title, I was kind of like, okay, where do they go from here? But that's why they're there and I'm here. That's why I'm watching. And I don't know everything behind the scenes, or I don't know where the writing is going. I feel Moxley has done a very good job. And I did say that I think he deserves the world. I think he deserves a run. I really was digging what Jericho was doing, but Jericho is far smarter than I am when it comes to this business. So they obviously knew what they were doing. And Jericho stepped away from that world title picture to focus on his inner circle versus the elite. I think they want to get that done. You know, AEW's been around for a year now. I really just hope that they feed Moxley some smart opponents and for that world title. And right now I'm not enthused, and I just don't want Jon Moxley's title run to be something where, okay, he beat Jake Hager, which is a big deal because Jake Hager's a legitimate badass, but I just don't think that he's got the steam right now. And then he takes on, you know, I don't know, a Sammy Guevara who's not quite ready yet and beats him too. I want to see Moxley in a big match, whether it's, and he had one against Jericho and he won, but I want to see him defend that title in a big match. And I hope they feed him the right people, but I think he's done a good job so far.
Was the issue with Moxley back at Revolution still the bad taste that you had of Dean Ambrose in the WWE in the last, I'd say, 6 months or so, where his career was coming to an end? Did that resonate with you when he won the championship? Did you see Dean Ambrose in Jon Moxley still when he won the championship, and you weren't really sold because of what happened in his last 6 months in WWE?
No, I think he debuted so well with AEW that if they were going to pull the trigger, maybe they should have pulled it, 4 or 5 months earlier. But Jericho just got on such a roll that I hated him losing the title. I think when Moxley won the belt, I was very happy for him. He deserves it. I just felt at that given time that Jericho had so much momentum that they could have really stretched this out for a little bit further. Maybe had Moxley win at Double or Nothing in a cage match. I knew Moxley was going to win the title eventually, but I just thought the him and Jericho program could have gone on a little bit longer because it was very intriguing. I mean, I bought that pay-per-view. I wanted to see what was going to happen. I also wanted to see MJF. And Cody, but I really, really, really wanted to see that Jericho match, and I thought it delivered, but I just think that they could have held off maybe a little bit longer on giving him the belt.
Who do you see as Moxley's, obviously after Hager's not losing the title to Hager, but who do you see as Moxley's first true challenge for the AEW Championship? Is it going to be a Lance Archer? Because they've had a history in New Japan. They battled over the New Japan United States Championship, IWGP United States Championship. Moxley beats Juice Robinson, and then I believe Moxley could not make an obligation over there due to some weather conditions. He couldn't fly out to Japan, and then Archer won the championship, and then I believe Moxley had a rematch at Wrestle Kingdom against Archer for the title that he never lost, and Archer beat him. So I could see Archer being the first. I don't know how well that's going to come across on AEW television. I think fans would enjoy that. Or the other one would be MJF. I don't know how you feel about MJF. He's still undefeated. And if he does end up against Moxley for the title, I could see MJF becoming the world champion. And I could see MJF and Cody reliving their feud. And MJF, it pains me to say it, being an interim champion. I don't want to have too many interim champions in AEW. It feels like Moxley would be an interim and then MJF would be an interim and then MJF would drop it to Cody. But it would be a way for MJF to kind of bring Cody out of that stipulation where he can't challenge anymore and Cody wins the championship, because I feel like we're in a time where AEW needs the elite to be the elite. You need Cody to be up front and center as the guy. You need the Young Bucks to do what they do, and you need Kenny and Hangman to be doing what they're doing. That's why I love them winning the tag team championships. Do you see MJF being the guy to take that belt off of Moxley?
I do. I think that Cody needs to. It's too predictable. When everyone came over Cody, the Bucks and Omega, everyone was like, well, Cody's going to win the world title. The Bucks are going to win the tag team titles, and then Omega and Cody are going to feud. It was too predictable, and the fans would have totally crapped on that. And that's why Tony Khan and those 5 gentlemen, all the elite members, Art Hangman Page included, are smart enough to not have that happen. What I would like to see is listen.
So it was worth the growing pains to you then to go through that without them being the guys up front and center.
Yes, because once they get it, I mean, basically once that happens, it's going to be the culmination of everything, right? They started this company. They all became executive vice presidents. They all wanted to, win this, and this. I mean, the Bucks haven't won a tag team title yet. Cody hasn't won a singles title yet. Hangman Page hasn't won anything, and Omega hasn't either. So once these things happen, everyone's going to be like, oh, finally. And that's the beauty of professional wrestling. But MJF can be that guy. MJF, I'm from Long Island, born and raised. I know exactly where he's from. I'm not too far from him. But his gimmick works. I don't like the things with the kids. But MJF can beat Jon Moxley, take the world title off him. And I wouldn't be surprised if you get Chris Jericho versus MJF before you get a Cody MJF, where Jericho kind of says, hey, you stupid idiot, I helped you get there and all this other stuff. And, that's my title. I'm the champion. I could see that happening. And then maybe you get your Cody versus MJF.
I could see that, and we'll touch on that Chris Jericho idea at the end with Matt Hardy, because I think Chris Jericho kind of laid out a possible scenario that could be happening with him in the inner circle, because he kind of threw everybody under the bus in that final segment. I'm not sure if you picked up on that, but we'll talk about that a little later. Brodi Lee is the Exalted One, and he is with the Dark Order. I said last week that I was not too keen on him being the leader of a faction, because we didn't really see him in that role as Luke Harper in the Wyatt family. We started to see Luke Harper break out on his own, and I don't know how you feel about this. I'm still pissed to this day about it, because Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt was one of the worst title matches I've ever seen at WrestleMania. If Luke Harper was thrown into that match and made it a triple threat match, that would have made the match excellent, in my opinion. And I feel like he got the shaft there, was never really given a true opportunity. We're finally seeing him here. He's not going to be cutting any Southern accents and getting fired over the fact that he can't cut a Southern accent, but he has, in the last 2 weeks, been portrayed as a solid guy to be a spokesman for the Dark Order. And he did it tonight, and he caught everybody up to speed on who he is. He says they do what they want when they want, and if something is there, they're going to take it no matter what. He said if they knock on your door, you will answer the door and let them in, and he will personally knock down the door if you don't, and he will lead the Dark Order through it. And we've seen footage of Christopher Daniels and him being beat down by Brodi Lee last week. Brody said Daniels is unsafe, and then obviously they touched on the fact that Brodi Lee says Daniels is not the first out-of-touch old man to not see anything in him, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the rest. But then we seen Brodi Lee in a suit sitting at a table eating steak with John Silver and Alex Reynolds. He said it's a new Dark Order with him, and he doesn't think that they get it yet because they've been on a losing streak. These guys are two losers. He said they prey on the weak, and he berated them for not getting it. He told Reynolds he cannot eat. He told both of them, actually, that they cannot eat until he is done eating his own food. He stood up and told, I believe, John Silver to get out of here because he went to go eat his food without permission. And then he looked over at Alex Reynolds and told him, you do not eat your food until I'm done. And then he sneezed, which is a Vince McMahon-ism that we picked up on. Vince hates when people sneeze around him, and he gets very agitated. So it's 2 weeks in a row now I picked up on the Vince McMahon-isms with Luke Harper here, Brodi Lee. What'd you think about Luke Harper? Or I keep calling him Luke Harper by his WWE name. Brodi Lee. What'd you think about Brodi Lee in this role on Dynamite tonight and the whole sneezing shtick with Alex Reynolds?
Well, that's the power that WWE has over you, where you keep referring to their old superstars.
I know. Shame on me.
But no, I think Brodi Lee has done a very, very, very good job, and I think he deserves this push. The WrestleMania 33 match, to touch on your previous point, that was ruined with all those special effects. I mean, not even a performer like Randy Orton could have saved that match, and he tried. But yeah, I think
what was it, worms?
Yeah, it was like worms and then
Snakes?
like skulls and snakes. It was just dumb. I was watching that live, and I was just like, "What is this?" You could tell Randy was just.
But I mean. You seem pretty confident that Bray Wyatt and John Cena are going to have a great match. I mean, I don't know what these gimmicks and shit that WWE does. Are we really in for something special with the cinematics, with the House of Horrors warehouse type gimmick for Bray Wyatt and John Cena?
Do you think that John Cena is going to attach his name to anything right now, given his status? That's not going to have him heavily produced. Like, he's going to produce it, and it's not going to be one of the best things you've seen. He's not going to do anything that's going to be terrible. He can't afford it. That's why he doesn't go to Saudi. That's why he doesn't come back all the time.
Bray Wyatt has entrusted Vince McMahon with this gimmick, and what happened?
Yeah, that's a whole show for another day. But yeah, I have enjoyed Brodi Lee, and I think that there are obviously shots at WWE's chairman there, and I think Brody will shine. I think that what they've done is good television, and I think that they have really set themselves apart. I think everyone thought it was going to be Matt Hardy, and then it's Brodi Lee, and the swerves keep coming. I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just maybe me, booking. Maybe Christopher Daniels joins the Dark Order. He has a dark path, so
I could see that. I mean, you can SCU's kind of run its course, in my opinion. I was never a big SCU guy, and I feel like Scorpio Sky is the breakout guy in that group, and they're going to want to push him as a singles. They got so many tag teams that they can afford to lose a tag team. So breaking up Daniels and Kazarian. Daniels, I'm not sure if you know, he's the head of talent relations over at AEW. So he is the guy there behind the scenes, and I feel like he's more suited for that role than being in the ring. I don't think anybody has an interest in seeing him wrestle anymore. And if he was to join the Dark Order, I think I'd be for it. Honestly.
Yeah. And you know what? To your point, if I was handed a company right now and they said, listen, you can take 2 guys from AEW, bring them over here, who aren't like already established major stars, I would 100% grab Scorpio Sky, and I would go grab Hangman Page right now, because I think those 2 are destined to be superstars.
Absolutely.
You can't take MJF, you can't take Cody, you can't take any of these guys. The guys that are kind of flying under the radar right now, Scorpio Sky and Hangman Page are going to be big time players. You just watch.
I'd probably, that's a good question. If I was to take 2, I'd probably take Hangman. I think Hangman is awesome, especially with this current gimmick. He's finally found his calling with this. Imagine it's being drunk that got him over, and I would probably go Pentagon, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, Pentagon is kind of like a big star. Listen, if I could grab him too, he's under the radar in AEW. You're right. I would try and grab him as fast as I could too. Yes. Yeah.
So Brodi Lee did have a match tonight, which I was not anticipating. QT Marshall, he pretty much boss man slammed him into oblivion. Discus lariat. He's got this thing, Brodi Lee, before he does the discus lariat, which looks kind of bizarre. Doesn't really fit the overall finishing move that he goes with. He's got a great clothesline. He transitions out of a Sister Abigail position into the clothesline. What do you think that is? Another knock on WWE for the sake of just knocking them?
I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of pettiness going around. So I don't know. I hope it's not. I hope it's maybe. I hope he drops it. I don't know what he's trying to accomplish there. But even like with the blood and guts pun, and now the first old. I'm not the the first old man to be out of touch and all that other stuff. Like, and the sneezing stuff and the stakes. It seems like there's a lot of like pettiness going on. But it might just be friendly digs. But I just don't get it. It just looks weird.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to be okay as a leader role? Like, I'm still going to give him a chance, but in the leadership role of the Dark Order, do you think he's going to excel in that role where he really hasn't ventured into at all being in WWE? How's he going to do in AEW?
Well, I think it's a big spot for him, and I think that they're literally handing him the ball with something, not the whole company, but they're handing him a big spot. And he'll probably get a couple big matches, and I think they'll see how it goes. But I think he'll excel. I think he's waited a long time, and I think he's very hungry.
Does he look better to you now that he does, or than he does in WWE? The last time you seen him?
I mean, the last time in WWE, he looked like he was a guy, like farming, and he was balding. So yeah, I think he looked better. I mean, I know what happens with WWE at times. You say you're leaving, and they almost bury you into an oblivion. But I just felt like his whole look was just, I didn't get it, and I thought it made him look, I don't know, someone who I wouldn't want to wrestle, let alone pay attention to on TV. So I think now with his new gimmick, I think it's a fresh coat of paint, as Bruce Pritchard would say.
Oh, my good old buddy Bruce, who's ruining SmackDown. Don't get me started, Bruce Pritchard. We got Sammy Guevara, everybody's favorite in AEW. He is challenging for the AAA Mega Championship held by Kenny Omega. This one felt like it was never ending. These guys went 24 minutes. And Sammy is one entertaining motherfucker, let me tell you. Guy was singing Jericho's Judas last week horribly because it looked like he forgot the lyrics, which should be a sin. One of the criteria to join the inner circle should be you should know the lyrics to your boss's theme song, number one. Number two, There was no fans in attendance tonight, and he had, I'm not a sci-fi, I'm kind of a sci-fi guy, but I'm not a Star Trek guy. It looked like he had caricatures drawn out on white cardboard of the Starship Enterprise characters.
Yeah, like
Picard and whoever else was there. He had one of Brandy, I think he was making out with. You know, he was licking the paper. He was licking the cardboard, making out with the... I thought we were going to have an Edge and Lita segment with fucking Sammy Guevara and this cardboard cutout of Brandy Rhodes. What do you think of Sammy and his entertainment factor in AEW? What do you think of when you first saw him on AEW to where he is now? I mean, it's like night and day with Sammy G.
Yeah, he's come a long way, and that's why I didn't pick him either, because I think he is right there. I think he's on the cusp of becoming a superstar, if not already there. I think his characters that were in the crowd remind me of the guys in New York City who will draw you and your significant other or whomever for like $20 on the street corner of New York City. So, I think he's just super entertaining. And I mean, so is Jericho. There's nothing that those two could do right now that don't pop me at home. I mean, Jericho calling Arn Anderson's play card a Waffle House menu, I lost it. I absolutely lost it. He's just so entertaining, and Guevara singing and all that other stuff. They're so entertaining, and Sammy Guevara is going to be a very big star very shortly.
So we had these two in there. This was a very good match. This is one of those situations where the crowd was needed. I felt like the energy that would be brought by an AEW crowd for these two in the ring going 24 minutes would have been something that takes this match from a 3-star to a maybe 4-star match. Yeah. I honestly don't think it would have been a 4-star match. It was kind of sloppy in parts, maybe 3.5, but the crowd was definitely needed for this one. At some points in this match, I thought Sammy was going to get the win, but they did sell, and they did a good job at selling the hand that Kenny Omega had broken at Revolution, and Sammy was working on the hand here. They went to a quick commercial break. We're going to speed things up here. They get towards the end because this is 24 minutes of nonstop action between these two. We had Guevara fighting out of a Snapdragon by Kenny Omega, and he rolled through into a double stomp. Guevara hit a springboard cutter and then a tope to follow up. Omega caught Guevara off a springboard and hit a powerbomb followed by a V-trigger. Guevara blocked a Liger bomb, scored a 2 count. Guevara missed a shooting star press. Omega hit 2 more V-triggers. Guevara then escaped the Snapdragon and hit a burning hammer, which is something that you probably won't see on WWE television. Omega hit a V-trigger, and then he finished him off with one more, and then the one-winged angel for the win. Really good stuff by these guys. I thought Sammy was going to win because the babyfaces had kind of gotten the one-up here going into the blood and guts match whenever that happens, but I thought Sammy was actually going to walk out with this thing. What'd you think of this match, and what'd you think of the performance between Kenny and Sammy?
First off, for all of your listeners who don't know, JD is a fantastic announcer. If you couldn't, play-by-play guy too, if you didn't just catch that with that quick recap. If he cleaned up his mouth at times, he'd probably be already hired by somebody. But, that's not me being a friend either. Listen to that. That was very, very well done. And he knows his holds and his moves. I thought Guevara and Omega was very good. I thought they were going to switch the title. That's where I thought I would have bet a little money on it, but they didn't. And I thought the match was good. At times it felt like it kind of dragged. But I thought these two had a really good match on television, and I was shocked they didn't put the belt on them. I really was.
Would the belt have made a difference in the feud between the Elite and the Inner Circle? I would say so, yes, but not to an extent where it's going to be something major. It would have been a nice little coup going into Blood and Guts, and then the babyfaces get the win. But what difference would it have made, really?
I think it would have made a lot of difference, because what you could have done is had Sammy Guevara hold the AAA world title, right? And then Jericho could have been like, oh, that's the minor league title. And Guevara kind of been like, hey, man, like,
yeah, give me some credit, yeah.
Can't you be happy for me? And then you could see the cracks start to form in that group, because that group is going to need to split up. I mean, it's not going to be the Four Horsemen of Revolution, because Jericho and Guevara and Hager are all going to need to do their own thing. And Santana and Ortiz are super talented too. I mean, you could have Jericho have Santana and Ortiz, or maybe Guevara, but they're gonna groom Guevara as a superstar, and he might have his own group. But I think it would have made a lot of difference, and I think they could have done that, and I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you brought up that point with the cracks forming in the Inner Circle, because, like I said just a little bit ago, I think Jericho kind of gave us a foreshadowing of what's to come in his promo. If you guys were paying attention to when Jericho was out in the ring talking to Matt Hardy, which was the final segment of the show. Obviously, everybody was waiting for this. Jericho came out to the ring for his confrontation with broken Matt Hardy. Jericho takes the camera from one of the cameramen, and he asks the cameraman to start singing Judas because there's no crowd. So I thought this was entertaining. Jericho is in the ring, and he calls the Elite, and Matt Hardy joining the Elite. He calls the Elite arrogant sons of bitches, which I love that Jericho is given leeway to speak his mind on this show. Jericho says he'll give Matt a chance to make the right decision to join the Inner Circle. So Vanguard 1 flies. I'm not sure if you heard this. Did you listen to the Jericho podcast with Matt Hardy?
The first 40 minutes of it, yes.
Did you get the part where he said if this was in Rochester, New York, that they would not be able to use Vanguard 1, and the fact that it was in Daly's place, they got to rewrite the entire segment with Vanguard 1 in it?
Yeah, so and they were talking about how they would have just had to show the drone being flown to the arena and then had to do something different. Yeah, yep.
I found that to be very, on top of all the other things that he mentioned in that podcast, I thought that was one of the more interesting pieces in that podcast.
Yeah.
So Vanguard 1 flies into Daly's place, and Jericho says he doesn't like Vanguard 1. He calls him Mr. Guard, and he calls Vanguard 1 a piece of shit. He calls Vanguard 1 a piece of shit, and he asks Vanguard 1 to join the inner circle. So he asked a fucking drone to join the Inner Circle. Jericho is absolutely priceless.
He is.
What were you going to say?
He is. He's insane. He can't. There's nothing that he doesn't touch or say right now that doesn't turn to gold.
Just reading this, I was watching it laughing, and reading it back, it's making me laugh all over again. He touts all the benefits of joining the Inner Circle to Vanguard 1. The drone flies away from Jericho. And then Matt Hardy's music plays, and he's up in the rafters, and the camera has this little, kind of in and out, and he's in the middle row, and then he's in the lower part, and then he appears right outside the ring in front of the barricade, and Jericho is just looking like, what the fuck's going on? Is there some type of magic going on here? Asking how Matt just did that. Matt says, I am magic. Jericho says this show and promotion was built on his back. Matt should align himself with Jericho and not the Elites. Matt says he's owed this to the Young Bucks. They resurrected broken Matt Hardy. Matt says he's witnessed what the Inner Circle has been doing in AEW to him. AEW is complete freedom, and the Inner Circle cannot ruin this paradise. Then this is where it gets a little kind of bizarre, because it's almost as if it's a foreshadowing. Jericho says he resurrected the careers of Jake Hager. He is the one who brought Moxley to AEW. He said that he made Sammy Guevara's career. He made Santana and Ortiz's career, which we know is not true because I'm a huge fan of those guys. Impact is where they made their name, really. I've called matches for them in House of Glory for 2 years. And Hager, he was a big name. He's got the MMA thing going on. Jericho pretty much threw everybody under the bus and said, I made this guy. I made the Inner Circle. I made him. I made that guy. Almost as if it's going to come to an end where all these guys turn on Jericho and they kick him out of the Inner Circle.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where we're headed. I think Blood and Guts is either going to be the destruction of the Elite or the self-implosion of the Inner Circle. And I think it's probably the Inner Circle.
And that's why I do think that's a foreshadowing there. So it was very interesting that Jericho had recited that in his promo. Matt says that Jericho may know his vessel, but he is Damascus and is 3,000 years old. Jericho understands reinvention. He's done that over and over. Jericho brings up Matt living in the shadow of his brother, the shadow of bad booking, which is something that I rant about every week. Matt says he's not in that situation any longer. He is brighter than ever. Jericho says one last time, is Matt with the Elite or the Inner Circle? Matt yells, delete. And then we go into this, that's not what I asked, and Matt just goes into his delete, delete, delete. Jericho tells him to stop because nobody is here to hear his stupid chant. And then Matt goes into this thing where he says that there are actually essences all over Daly's place. He's pointing to Abraham Lincoln. He's pointing to Martin Luther King. And then he starts singing his obsolete song. So Jericho takes his glasses off. He says he doesn't see anything but a broken down old Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy is slapped in the face by Jericho, and then Matt punches Jericho back, knocking him down. Jericho says he can do some magic himself, and he says Matt Hardy's going to get his ass kicked, hocus pocus, abracadabra, whatever, and then out comes Sammy Guevara, and he attacks Matt Hardy from behind, and then obviously Show goes off the air with Jericho running away, Cody and Kenny saving Matt, and then Matt deleting himself or deleting AEW as the show goes off the air. What'd you think of the closing segment between these two, and was it worth the price of admission?
Yeah, I mean, there was nobody there, so anything's worth the price of admission. But yes, I thought it was very good. I thought they did a good job. I think those are two constant professionals, and I think that the promos were well done. Like I said, Jericho has been on a roll and will continue to be on a roll. Matt Hardy, yeah, I dug it. What are you a big fan of his broken gimmick? Like, I know not the WWE form, but like what we saw before. Are you for this version of Matt Hardy?
I mean, I met him several years ago. I asked him to delete me. It's in the opening to the Off the Script theme, so that's where I got that from. I'm a huge fan of this gimmick. I think I actually went and watched back, being that you mentioned the WWE version, I went back and watched some of the back and forth between him and Bray Wyatt. I thought they were great.
Yeah.
And I feel like WWE really dropped the ball on that. I love the little gimmick match that they did at the Hardy compound. I thought that was awesome. Vince didn't like it. He didn't get it. Matt said so on the Jericho podcast. He's like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it, says Vince. And he just didn't want to let Matt be creative, and that's why Matt is here. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Matt. I honestly think, I'd love your opinion on it. I do think Matt's going to be the one to bring AEW to over 1 million viewers.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Brodi Lee's going to have a little bit of a knob, it's going to go up a little bit, but I think Matt Hardy just turned that from, 7 to 10. And I think that I said it on the show that I did earlier this afternoon. I think that they are going to do 1.1 million views or maybe a little bit less. I think that Matt Hardy is a needle changer. And I think that AEW gained a huge superstar in him. And they're about one or two superstars away if they could sign him away or build, which I think they're going to try and do, from possibly maybe even competing with Monday Night Raw. And that's a big, big step.
Well, that's a bold statement coming from you. I know the Revival's coming over, more than likely. Who else do you see coming over? Well, Brian Cage was another one that was rumored. I think as soon as he heals up from his injury, he'll be over. Those are two big signings individually. You got the Revival as a tag team, and then Brian Cage coming over from Impact. Who else do you see heading over to AEW to kind of push them and make them creep a little bit closer to getting to that position?
Well, it's going to take somebody because I know you remember because you're a wrestling historian and you know your stuff. I mean, WCW was kind of floundering, and then they got Hogan, then they got Hall, they got Nash. And those are three legitimate superstars. AEW got Moxley, Jericho. Now they've got Matt. I don't think they're on those levels. Not a lot of people are, but they're close. Jericho is probably the closest thing you're going to get to a Hulk Hogan transferring brands. But I think if somebody leaving WWE that's going to have some big significance, and I don't know. I mean, I know everyone's dogging on Ricochet right now, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think Vince is probably testing him. He did that with Drew before he gave Drew his big push. But there could be some guys over there or gals who decide to leave. I mean, let's just say, for instance, a Sasha Banks or a Bayley decides to leave WWE to go to AEW because AEW's women's division needs a little bit of help besides Britt Baker. That could be a game changer.
Are you familiar with Sammy Callahan?
I am.
What do you think of him?
I think he's fantastic, but I'm just saying, I think that is Sammy Callahan going to bring in, another 1 million views? There's not a lot of people who do that, or 500,000 views. The Revival is going to be a big get for them if they could get it. I mean, I thought Marty Scurll would be a big get for them, but he's obviously, staying with Ring of Honor, I believe. Even like I know he says he'll never work, but a Ryback would do a little bit of ratings. He's not my cup of tea as a wrestler, but I mean,
he's a very smart guy. I actually enjoy listening to him. I don't know what you think about him.
God, is he intelligent? You want to talk about a guy who knows health and fitness and brain and stuff like that. I'm a huge Onnit guy, and he does a brain supplement. I'm big into Alpha Brain and everything Onnit he has put out. But he is highly intelligent. So
now, if we get a Dynamite show, and we'll close with this. If we get a Dynamite show, I'm assuming we're getting one next week, being that they gave us Lance Archer confirmed next week. Mm-hmm. If we get a Dynamite show next week, or if we don't get a Dynamite show, the better question is, with this Orlando shutdown, stay at home starting Thursday at 11 p.m., do you think that will have a trickle-down effect for the entire state of Florida and not just be confined to Orange County in Orlando? And if this is the case and we don't get any pro wrestling from WWE and Dynamite, Nobody knows how long it's going to be. Where do we go from here as far as wrestling goes? Is this going to be detrimental to the growth of AEW? Is AEW going to be in trouble? What does WWE do as far as TV goes after the Raw, after the Monday Night Raw, after WrestleMania? They have everything kind of taped up until that point, and if it lasts as long as everybody says it's going to last, what happens? What does Vince do? What does Tony do?
Well, they both have the luxury of very large TV deals, so they're going to have to fulfill those obligations, and I think that they'll do it however which way they can. I think they're going to talk with network executives and just say, hey, listen, I mean, we'll constantly put out new content if we can. We'll tape shows, whether it be at the Stamford warehouse or if they can tape at Full Sail or the WWE Performance Center, maybe, only having 5 or 6 guys in a building. I'm not sure. I think, but they'll continuously push out new content. I think they rushed and got WrestleMania in the can now because they knew what was coming, or they got a good heads up on what was coming, and they needed to blow off these feuds. And I think that AEW postponed Blood and Guts because they really didn't need to rush to get there. So they could build this. And AEW's video packages have been very, very good. So they could do that. They could do that as well. I think you're going to see wrestling on television for the foreseeable future, just because those TV contracts are large. And TNT just gave AEW a 4-year extension, so they're going to want their content.
Were you one of those guys that wanted WrestleMania to be postponed, canceled, or are you okay with Vince working in the feverish way that he is to get this thing just out there? And I know WrestleVotes tweeted out and I agree with, I actually do believe WrestleVotes on most of the stuff that account, whoever that is, multiple people, whoever it is, tweets out. I do think the majority of the roster, when he says, would have liked it to be postponed for obvious reasons, whether it be pay, whether it just be, what the fuck do I work all year round? I got to perform at the biggest show of the year in front of nobody. Then my pay is going to be affected. Right. There's no merchandise coming in. So were you one of those guys that wanted to postpone?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have seen it at Madison Square Garden for 2 nights in June or July. But you don't have to be a genius to figure out these guys don't want to have their WrestleMania match in the Performance Center. It's not – think about the guys that are coming back for this WrestleMania and the talent. You have Edge and Randy Orton, which would be a main event, especially the way they've built this match in any building, any pay-per-view, anywhere. You have AJ Styles and The Undertaker. You have Goldberg versus Roman Reigns, and it's going to be in front of nobody. I mean, nobody could have predicted this, but of course these guys don't want to, I mean, it's not, it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out, that they don't want to wrestle in front of a performance center. And yeah, I would have loved to have seen WrestleMania postponed for I should say 3 reasons. I was going to say 2, but 3. One of them is I would have loved to have seen WrestleMania with a crowd over 2 nights. Once they announced the second night, I was like, oh boy, we're going to get a postponement. The second being because I could have sold tickets for it. And the third, because I could have attended. And I think that's what WrestleMania is all about. WrestleMania is, that whole weekend is about fans getting together to watch a culmination of a year-long build and a year-long show. And it's totally unfortunate that we're going to have to see it at the Performance Center. But WWE is going to produce one of their best shows ever, I truly believe, even without the fans. And it will all be entertaining. At the end of the day, it pains me to say, but the WWE wanted to get this done, in my opinion, because they need to get this ESPN, Yahoo, Amazon deal done where they get the major 4 off their network. So that's why I think this is happening.
And one final question: with the 2 nights, too big for one night, or too much garbage for one night, is what I've been saying. I got to throw it in there, dude. Does WWE, after this year, continue to do the 2-night WrestleManias?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think so, because I think that they will always want to do the big stadiums. And I don't think that they'll want to, I don't think they'll want to have their crew on a Saturday or a Sunday. With NXT being canceled, I think it kind of opened the door for that. And Vince likes bigger and badder, and he's going to continually do that. And I think that they'll have it, just on one night. Me personally, I think this was a great time to go back to Madison Square Garden, to go back to your roots, and to get that arena feel for a WrestleMania, which helped a lot of people fall in love with wrestling. And I think that it's a shame they're not doing it, but I understand why they're doing it.
Oh, I know. Us New Yorkers would have brought it in Madison Square Garden, no question. A lot of people actually said there was another thing going around. that WWE could have canceled SummerSlam. Somebody was like, cancel SummerSlam and put WrestleMania in Boston and just leave SummerSlam off the calendar. Would that have been feasible, logical to do that?
No, it's their second biggest pay-per-view of the year. I mean, I know the Royal Rumble is held in a baseball stadium, and they'll continue to do that as long as they can because people do clamor for the Rumble because it's totally unpredictable. But SummerSlam has been the WWE's second biggest pay-per-view since inception, basically. And no, I what they could do, and again, this is a could. I'm not breaking any news here. There is a big football stadium in New England, in the Boston area. And a lot of people are going to want to go to SummerSlam. So maybe move it to there.
There you go.
That's what I would do.
Some inside information there that is not out there, but it's possible. I mean, it's Vince McMahon. Anything is possible. For him to recoup his money back on WrestleMania, I could absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, it's an opinion. It's a smart business decision, too. I don't have any inside information saying that SummerSlam is being moved, but I could tell you that if I was a businessman, I know that myself and probably 40 to 50,000 people would want to go to SummerSlam since we got WrestleMania canceled.
There you go. And if I'm not doing anything, I would like to go to SummerSlam. I was hoping that they moved WrestleMania to a point where I could actually go and hang out with you guys down in Tampa because I was doing some other things that got canceled and everything got canceled. So maybe I'll make my way out. If that's the case, maybe we'll make SummerSlam the hangout.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe the WrestleCon guys will get down there and do a WrestleCon for SummerSlam. They'll be able to recoup some money.
Yeah.
And you know what? It'll be a fun weekend because I do think the Hall of Fame is going to go to SummerSlam weekend. I really do. So.
Well, I think that was confirmed by Bulldog's daughter, I believe.
Okay.
So
cool.
So that's pretty much in the can, I think. But thank you guys so much for joining me on Off the Script. If you enjoyed the podcast and you enjoyed the take of Ticket Drew here tonight and want to see him back next week, let me know down in the comments below. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, turn on the bell for all notifications. And if you guys missed any of my content during the week, Monday Night Raw and a very special Off the Script upload earlier today, go and check that out. Link is down below in the description. Drew, plug what you can, and then we'll get the hell out of here.
I'm not going to plug anything, man. Just keep enjoying JD. He's an opinionist who has strong ones, and sometimes he's spot on, and sometimes he just needs to watch his mouth.
Watch my mouth all the time. I know. But I'm glad to have you here, man. Hopefully we'll do this again next week. I'm sure the reception's going to be great, and we had a great Dynamite show. Hopefully we got some wrestling next week that we can look forward to.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys later for Off the Script.